All right, we are live. Well, unlisted live, not live live. Going to start out by sharing screen. Hmm. So let's get started. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. All right. So today's topic, this morning's topic, I should say, is among the hardest to grasp because it goes against such innate feeling and such strongly held views that even trying to kind of intellectually understand it is near impossible. But one way to understand anatta, this is the third characteristic of existence. It's best to understand anatta not as no self, not even as not self, because these are very confusing. People can misunderstand it. As a matter of fact, the Buddha is asked by Vajragata, is there a self or is there not a self? The Buddha refused to answer. And when asked by Ananda why he didn't answer, he said, well, if I asked, if I responded in one way, Vajragota would be confused and think that I have an eternalist view. And if I answered the other way, Vajragota would be confused and think I have an annihilationist view. Right? And so these are two extremes that the Buddha uses, talks about in the suttas. So when we try to understand anatta, in my opinion, especially for Westerners, the best way to understand it, I first heard this word, this definition from Bhante Silananda at Bhavana. At first, I didn't like it. It sounded like very, not like Christian, but it didn't seem, it didn't click with me. But then, a couple of years later, I thought, actually, this is right. This is spot on. And the way Bhante Silananda defined it as soullessness, and this is one way you can define anatta. What we understand to be a soul in Western, Abrahamic religions and different things, we understand this to be this kind of permanent essence of us, right? This permanent being that is going from life to life, or even just as one life. Maybe you're an eternalist or annihilationist, whatever. But this permanent essence that is me. And we really have that innate feeling that there is this permanent essence that is me. But what have we been going over this weekend? What is the first characteristic of existence? Sabbe sankhara anicca. All conditioned things are impermanent, unstable, undependable. The third one is sabbe dhamma anatta. Keep in mind here that there's no sankhara anymore. Sabbe dhamma anatta. All dhammas, all phenomena, all reality is not a soul. No, there is soulless, free of any permanent essence. So if you even just want to have a logical progression, starting with anatta, or starting with anicca, anatta makes sense. There is no permanent anything. There's no permanent, there's no stable, there's no dependable anything in conditioned existence. And because we have this innate feeling, this innate, yes, there is. Even this is called the conceit I am. This is one of the 10 fetters that keep us in the samsaric state. We have this real view, I am, until we're awakened. But the Buddha tells us, you know, what Western philosophy is, I think, therefore I am. But the Buddha tells us, actually, I am, therefore I suffer. And we're going to talk about that. But we have to start, I think, at the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta. This is the Buddha's premier teaching and the third teaching the Buddha ever gave on not self. So to understand not self, or to understand soullessness, we need to understand this sutta. And the Buddha gives a three-part argument here. So the Buddha says, mendicants, if form is not self, mendicants' form is not self. For if form were self, it wouldn't lead to affliction, and you could compel form. May my form be like this, may my form not be like that. But because form is not self, it leads to affliction, and you can't compel form. May my form be like this, may it not be like that. Feeling, perception, choices, and consciousness. So these are the 5 aggregates. Right? And so the Buddha is, the 5 aggregates, remember, are the psychophysical constituents that create, that have come together to form this mind and body. And as we'll see in a second, as we go through different suttas, this is what we take of as self, as me, as this permanent essence, as this soul. But the Buddha is making an argument here. If any aspect of this psychophysical organism was seen as permanent, stable soul, permanent essence, then you could command, you had mastery over this, you could command it. You could say, be like this, don't be like that. And of course we say, well, I mean, I can, tell my arm to move and my arm moves. I can tell my body to walk and it walks. And the Buddha would say, okay, sure, that's true. Tell your body not to get old. Tell your body not to get sick. Tell your body not to die. Ah, you don't have full mastery over these things. So, therefore, what? It cannot be permanent. It cannot be some kind of soul or essence or permanent self or whatever, however you want to define it. So that's the first argument that the Buddha makes. And then he leads the monks into a line of questioning. So the Buddha asks the monks, is form, feeling, perception, consciousness, choices, etc., mental formations, however you want to translate the sankharas here, is this permanent or impermanent? Is this nitya or anicca? Stable and dependable, or unstable and undependable? The Buddha is asking this question to the monks. Okay. And so the response is impermanent. Form is unstable, undependable. And so that's the response. And so then the Buddha continues on with this line of questioning. Is that which is impermanent, unstable, undependable, is that dukkha or sukha? Is that suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir, they reply. But if it's impermanent, first characteristic of existence, anicca, suffering, dukkha, second characteristic of existence, and perishable, viparinama, rise and fall, is it fit to be regarded as thus? This is mine. I am this. This is myself. No, sir. So you see the Buddha's argument here. If this aggregate is, or these aggregates are impermanent, suffering, and subject to change, is this some kind of permanent essence? Permanent self? The response is, of course, no, sir. And so the same thing is feeling, choices, perception, consciousness, etc. Impermanent but if that is what is impermanent, is it suffering or happiness? Suffering. But if that is what is impermanent, suffering, and perishable, is it fit to be regarded thus? This is mine. I am this. This is myself. No, sir. And so here the Buddha kind of ends this with, so you should truly see any kind of the aggregates, any kind of experience, any kind of whatever you would think is yourself, as whether past or future or present, internal, that's of your body, external, other people, the outside, solid or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, all form, feeling, perception, choices, and consciousness, you should see with right understanding. This is not mine. I am not this. This is not myself. Seeing in this way, a learned and noble disciple grows disillusioned with form, feeling, perception, choices, and consciousness. Being disillusioned, desire fades away. When desire fades away, they're freed. When they're freed, they know they're freed, and they have become awakened. So you see this, quite a simple, just line of argument that the Buddha gives. The Buddha gives us this line of questioning to go against what we just automatically accept. Oh, you think this is me, mine, myself? Look deeper. Question. Investigate. And indeed, what you will see as you investigate every part of your experience, you will say, okay, well, in isolation, you'll accept, okay, this is not me. Like most people will probably accept that the body is not me, right? But what they have harder time to accept is the mind is not me. That's a difference, right? So this is the line of questioning that the Buddha is asking us to question everything that we see of as me, mine, and myself. Every little aspect. And what you will find is that you will start knocking things out. You will start saying, no, this is not me, mine, or myself. This is not me, mine, or myself. This is not me, mine, or myself. And you could become a stream enterer. You could become a once returner. You could become a non-returner. And maybe you have just not everything that you've ever investigated. You understand it's not me, mine, and myself, but you still have that conceit, I am. Even though I know none of this is me, mine, and myself, I still feel like I exist. Right? And it's only upon becoming fully awakened is that conceit abandoned. So this is a very hard thing, even for a non-returner to let go of. They still have that conceit, I am. They've totally abandoned greed and hatred. Loba and dosa is gone, a non-returner. But they still have the conceit, I am. That's how deeply ingrained it is. It's quite amazing. And so now I want to go through a few sutta quotes regarding identity. And it has to start with a question where a monastic or a wanderer asked Sariputta, "Friend Sariputta, what is identity?" It is said, identity, identity, what now is identity? And what does Sariputta say? These 5 aggregates subject to clinging have been called identity by the Sublime One. That is the form, feeling, perception, volitional formations, and consciousness aggregates subject to clinging. So, this is one thing actually I think I neglected. I neglected to go over the basic definition the Buddha gives of dukkha yesterday. But the summation that the Buddha gives of dukkha is, in summation, these 5 aggregates subject to clinging are dukkha. So we take these 5 aggregates and we cling to them. And that is the creation of suffering. But what is it also the creation of? Sariputta just explains it to us. It's the creation of identity. So quite literally, the creation of identity is at this very same time the creation of suffering. Those things are like this. You cannot have the creation of identity separate from the creation of suffering. It is literally the same exact thing. That is a very important insight to have. The creation of identity is the creation of suffering. This is quite an amazing thing. And so in a sutta called The Way, the Buddha explains this. Bhikkhus, I will teach you. And again, as always, you'll have a reference sheet at the end of the retreat. It will have all these suttas, and it'll have a little parentheses. It'll explain. It'll give you a little hint as to what this is, right? And so it's the link, and it says The Way, and so you'll know. Okay, this is where this is from. Bhikkhus, I will teach you the way leading to the origination of identity, and the way leading to the cessation of identity. Listen to that. And what bhikkhus is the way leading to the origination of identity? Here, a bhikkhu, and the uninstructed worldling, regards form as self, feeling as self, perception as self, volitional formations as self, consciousness as self, or as self in those 5 aggregates. So the second that you take the 5 aggregates as self is the origination of identity. When it is said the way leading to the origin of identity, the meaning here is this: a way regarding things that leads to the origination of suffering. Here again, the Buddha is literally equating dukkha with identity. It is the same exact thing. And what bhikkhus is the way leading to the cessation of identity? Here, bhikkhus, the instructed noble disciple, does not regard the 5 aggregates as self. This bhikkhus is called the way leading to the cessation of identity. When it is said the way leading to the cessation of identity, the meaning here is this: the way of regarding things that leads to the cessation of suffering. Just like that. And this is why you don't fully abandon your suffering until you fully abandon identity. Until you fully become an awakened being. Until that time, This is why when you guys ask me questions and I say, well, you're not awakened yet. It's okay. You're on the path. Right? This is what I'm talking about. Until we're fully awakened, we have I mean, as we even become a stream enter, non-returner, we're abandoning fetters. I mean, that's not a small deal. That's a huge deal. But until the end, we are still working with most things, right? Until we reach that point. There's 10 fetters, and even if you're a non-returner, the stage right before awakening, you've only knocked out 5. You still have half of the fetters until you're awakened. Right? So we understand, okay, well, we are on the path. We're not quite there yet. Because we still have these attachments to identity, we will have suffering. This is the way it is. And so the Buddha gives a few similes regarding this. Suppose, mendicants, there was a mountain river that flowed swiftly, going far, carrying all before it. If wild sugarcane, kusa grass, reeds, vetiver, or trees grew on either bank, they'd overhang the river. And if a person who was being swept along by the current grabbed at these, things, it would break off and they'd come to ruin because of that. Remember, some of you have heard me talk about this simile, or it's like the person's we're just going with the flow, just kind of, resting, letting the river go with us. And then we realize, uh-oh, this is not good. We start grabbing, trying to get ourselves out of the river, and we're grabbing at the wrong things, and it's too late. They would come to ruin. So in the same way, an unlearned, ordinary person has not seen the noble ones, and is neither skilled nor trained in the teaching of the noble ones. So what they regard form as self, or self having form, or form in self, or self in form. And so likewise, the other 5 aggregates. This is how important it is. Our suffering is literally connected to the fact that we regard that which has arisen as identity, as self, as some kind of permanent essence, as me. It's funny, there's this movie called Cloud Atlas, like with Tom Hanks and a bunch of people, and it's a movie about reincarnation. Like they go, you follow like these 5 actors, and they go from life to life, and it's really, I don't think it was received well, and it's kind of really awkward because in one life, it's Tom Hanks, and the next life he's Asian, so they make him with prosthetics look Asian, and there's an Asian woman, and they make her look a different way, and it's like the idea here, it's really weird, but the concept is what? That no matter life to life to life, it's the same person. This movie is not a Buddhist movie. Because what we think, this is me going from life to life to life. And in this lifetime, you're a human female, human male, whatever. So, it's going to be me going to the next life. No. Almost nothing of what you think of as you is going into the next life. And of course, the joke I always say is, if I don't become a stream enter, there's a chance that next life I'm a female kangaroo. And how much of Bhante Jayasara, human male, in this life is going to go into the female kangaroo? Almost nothing. Just my karma, maybe some proclivities, who knows? I don't, these details are not laid out by the Buddha. But we have this, even when we accept that, okay, we'll have different lives and we can have different forms and all this stuff, there's still a kind of it's going to be me. Married people, they'd be like, let us come together in the next life so we can always be together. And I'm sorry, but in the next life, you're going to be a human and the other person's going to be the dog. It's like, but we think, we're in love in this life, and we're going to, so it's this attachment to even this identity, this who me. Even in the next life, it's still going to be me. No, this is not how it works. Okay. And so the Buddha says this. This is a sutta, not yours. Therefore, bhikkhus, whatever is not yours, abandon it. The Buddha is telling us to abandon identity. When you have abandoned it, this will lead to your welfare and happiness for a long time. What is not yours? Form is not yours. Feeling is not yours. Perception is not yours. Volitional formations or choices is not yours. Consciousness is not yours. Abandon it. What is he saying there? Abandon the attachment to it. Allow an awakened being still has aggregates. Until they've become fully extinguished, they still have a body. The Buddha for 40 years had a body. He still had form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. But what he did not have is the 5 aggregates subject to clinging. Right? The 5 aggregates, you don't cling to them. They're not suffering. They're not identity. They're just aggregates. They're just causes and conditions that have come together. And then the causes and conditions, they will come apart. The Buddha tells us directly, whatever is not yours, abandon it. Don't attach to it, because the attachment is the creation of suffering. The attachment is the creation of identity. When you have abandoned them, this will lead to your welfare and happiness for a long time. Right? And of course, it seems very complicated. Like, well, how can I kind of live in a conceptual world. Like, people know me as an identity. Like, how could you live? And there's people who have really, either they're mentally ill or they have really wrong view or they're deluded or whatever. I've seen these people at Bhavana retreats, and they'll come and they'll be like, these 5 aggregates are hungry. These 5 aggregates are thirsty. These 5 aggregates are tired. And I'm like, these people are not, this is not wisdom. This is not, because a wise being understands that, yes, you know that this is not me, not myself, but you still identify. As a matter of fact, a Brahmin comes up to the Buddha in the sutta and says, oh, you're supposedly awakened, but why do you use the word, why do you say I and me? And the Buddha says, well, that is the convention. The convention is that, you use I and me in these things. And Ajahn Chah, very famous Thai forest master, basically talks about this as well. He says, you have to be a master of both the conventional and the transcendent. So an awakened being might say, me, I'm hungry, I'm tired, whatever, but they know there's no permanent essence there. They're just using a convention to talk to somebody, who is, because otherwise it sounds silly. These 5 aggregates are tired. These 5 aggregates are very proud of you. It just does not work. And so a wise being understands the difference there. They don't, just because, you see these as not self does not mean you just, you understand for the benefit of others, you talk in such a way. That's how the Buddha did it. And so the Buddha says, the noble ones have seen as happiness the ceasing of identity. This view of those who clearly sees runs counter to the entire world. What others speak of as happiness, the noble ones say is suffering. What others speak of as suffering, the noble ones know as bliss. Wow. Isn't that powerful? Right? We're so deluded that we don't know what is really suffering and really happiness. That's what the Noble Eightfold Path is for, to help us to understand these things. To say, okay, well, you know, I don't understand, but I want to see. I want to face these characteristics of existence, to really understand these things for what they are, regardless of how unpleasant it might be at first. It's just like you have a child and they have to take some medicine, and boy, they don't want to take the medicine, but you know that it will be for their long lasting benefit. So you make them take that medicine. You know, that's how important it is. And so let's close out with one of my favorite suttas in all of existence. You hear me talk about it all the time, every guided meditation. And this is connected with what we're talking about. Let me share. The burden. How many times every guided meditation, lay down your burdens. When the Buddha talks about somebody who's awakened, he says this is a person who has laid down their burden. Let's see how this is connected to what we've been talking about. Bhikkhus, I will teach you of the burden, the carrier of the burden, the taking up of the burden, the laying down of the burden. Listen to that. And what, bhikkhus, is the burden? It should be said, the 5 aggregates subject to clinging. Well, isn't that something? So it's like we're carrying around this huge, heavy weight. It's our suffering. It's our identity. We're carrying around this huge burden. We're lugging around this heavy backpack. The 5 aggregates subject to clinging, i.e., suffering, i.e., identity. And what, bhikkhus, is the carrier of the burden? It should be said, the person, the venerable one of such name and clan. This is called the carrier of the burden. When you create the burden, you have created the carrier of the burden. And what, bhikkhus, is the taking up of the burden? It is the craving that leads to renewed existence. The craving that leads to taking the 5 aggregates and clinging to them, right? Accompanied by delight and lust, seeking delight here and there, that is craving for sensual pleasures, craving for existence, craving for extermination. This is called the taking up of the burden. And what, bhikkhus, is the laying down of the burden? It is the remainderless fading away and cessation of that same craving. The giving up of your suffering, the giving up of your identity, right? Relinquishing of it, freedom from it, non-reliance on it. This is called the laying down of the burden. This is what the Blessed One said. Having said this, the Fortunate One, the teacher, said this: the 5 aggregates are truly burdens. The burden carrier is the person. Taking up the burden is suffering in the world. Laying down the burden is blissful. Having laid the heavy burden down without taking up another burden, having drawn out craving with its root, one is freed from hunger, fully quenched. Anyone who's gotten to the point where they start to really experience nibbida and really want to start to become awakened, like, this is just like the sweetest music in existence. Like, ah, yes, this is so nice. I want to lay down my burdens. When can I lay down my burden? And this is actually one of the 5, the 10 fetters is the restlessness. You reach a point where you're like, when can I lay down my burdens fully without being stupid enough to pick them up again? Right? When can I experience the bliss of the noble ones? Ah, so nice. And so it should be understood I'm over time, but this is important. So only need a couple more minutes. Experiencing anatta is not a eureka moment. It's not something that like 1 second you're like, oh, I have this self and I'm suffering and I'm attached. And then the next one, oh, no self, no suffering, no, that's not how it happens. Everything on the Buddhist path is a gradual unveiling, a gradual understanding, a gradual development of wisdom and insight. You start by, the first couple things. Oh, wait, I always thought this was me, myself, but I don't anymore. Wow. What is this? Right? But that's only one aspect. You have like a couple thousand other aspects to have the wisdom of, oh, wait, that's not me either. That's not, whoa. But whenever you have that insight, oh, that's, my thoughts are not me. Where are they coming from? They're just arising. Why does the Buddha say thoughts are external? Whoa. You mean I don't have to just automatically accept these thoughts that have arisen as mine? I can act skillfully and abandon them? Wow. What is that? That's agency. That's power. That's freedom. That's peace. So the more you're able to let go, it's not you're not afraid, oh, I'm losing my identity. It's one less avenue of suffering. So nice. Right? And you still, when you meet very advanced people, very deep teachers, are they robots? No, they're very like happy. They're just very kind of lighthearted. That's nice. Right? Because we don't understand with wisdom, we think, oh, we're losing our identity. That's something to be afraid of. You just become a robot. You can't. No. But that's not how it works. Especially even Ajahn Chah, right? Ajahn Chah is very kind of boisterous, very charismatic, and people say he's awakened. Well, I mean, I don't know one way or the other if he was awakened, but personally, I would say he's definitely very advanced, one way or the other. And he had that lightheartedness. And so it's really not something to be feared. It's something to be looked forward to, something to be developed. Oh, yes. And the more you develop it, the more peace, the more freedom. Your burden becomes lighter. Carrying around this heavy backpack with all my baggage, my physical baggage, my mental baggage, all of this stuff. And it's like, when you become an advanced backpacker, you really start to understand, the nature, and going out in nature is like, oh, wait, well, I don't need this. I don't need that. And you just lighten your backpack. It's the same thing when the Buddhist practitioners, when you do that, you develop, oh, I don't need this. I can let this go. I'm going to let this, and your burden becomes lighter. Until one day you just literally let it all down. You say, I'm done. You've laid down your burden. You become awakened. Right? And that's the ultimate bliss. But until such time, we practice, at least every once in a while, laying down our burdens. We're going to pick it back up again anyway because we're deluded and ignorant. But lay down our burdens, practice, kind of enjoy that, and then making our burdens less, making our burdens lighter until the time we let it go for good. All right, friends. So that is the third characteristic of existence, that all things are not me, not mine, not myself. No matter how deludedly you try to find it, and you will. So let's do our meditation. So as always, set your body up in that comfortable and stable position. Start doing the mindful scan of the body. even as you're doing your mindful scan, you could, question yourself. Is the foot me? I say my feet, right? Oh, my feet hurt. My ankle hurts. My knees hurt. Is this me? Ask yourself that question in isolation. Is this knee mine? you're done setting up your body in a comfortable and stable position, let the body go. Take your breaths and start following the breath. Remember to lay down your burdens. Acknowledge, let go, and return. As you're following the breath, continue to question, is the air coming in through the nostrils or the mouth? Is that me or mine? Nose, the mouth, the lungs, all the parts of the body involved in the process of breathing. Can you find a permanent essence there? Is there anything really stable and unchanging in that whole process? And you start to have various feelings arise, like itching or pain. Ask yourself the question, is this me? Is this mine? What happens when I accept it as mine? What happens when I let it go? Let it be. For a while, we'll switch our object of meditation from focusing in on the breath to a more wide awareness of the body and mind, allowing whatever arises becomes prominent in your awareness, whether thoughts, emotions, bodily feelings, letting all the possible things in the mind and body arise and investigating them, questioning them. Is this me? Is this mine? No matter how silly it might seem, or no matter how obvious, of course, this isn't me or mine. Just train yourself to ask that question. Really try to see as deeply as you can regarding that thought, emotion, feeling, etc. Investigate as deeply as you can whatever arises. Is this me? Is this mine? Is this myself? Question. Try to see, investigate, try to find permanent essence in whatever is arising.